Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I'm Kelsey. I'm the creator of Outside Ancient History and a recent graduate of Cambridge University. This video is part of a long series that I've been doing now throughout the whole of 2022 where I discuss the historical fact and fiction of your favourite TV shows and films. And unfortunately, this is now episode 6, the final episode of Moon Knight. So if this sounds like something you might be interested in, don't forget to like this video and subscribe so that you don't miss out on any of my future content. More generally, I studied classics at undergraduate level and then Egyptology at master's, and I create fun and educational historical content. So if that sounds like something you might be interested in, don't forget to check out my other social media platforms. It goes without saying, obvious spoiler warnings ahead if you have not seen the last episode yet. And without further ado, let's get into it. As we know, at the end of episode 4, Mark and Stephen unfortunately get shot and pass away. So in episode 5, we see them on their journey in the duat. Episode 6 then starts with Harrow over his body in the tomb. In the background of this scene, we see something that I don't think we saw in the previous episode of the tomb, which is a bird. And this is actually an ibis. As we know, most Egyptian gods will have an animal form, and the ibis is the animal form of a god called Thoth, or Thoth. Alongside being depicted as an ibis as we see here, he also is sometimes just the body of a man and the head of an ibis, or sometimes even a baboon. Interestingly enough, like Khonshu, Thoth is also a moon god, so that's quite a cool connection there. But what is he doing in a tomb? Thoth is also the god of wisdom, and in this role, he oversees many judgments in the afterlife. For example, and most famously, the weighing of the heart scene, which I've talked about in every single episode. So we see this judgment process, obviously, and this is where we get into this whole debate with Khonshu and Ammit, and Thoth is one of the gods that oversees this. He will also generally arbitrate on many godly disputes. So again, it makes sense that we might include a little Easter egg of him here, because if we were to bring to life this Egyptian mythology with Khonshu versus Ammit, it would be Thoth who would probably weigh in on it. Also, in relation to the journey to the underworld, he's also one of the gods that accompanies Ra on the solar bark, and this is the boat that I was talking about in the previous episode, so go check out my last video for a little more information on this journey and the boat. With Mark and Steve a little preoccupied and Layla kind of hiding to work out what to do, Harrow gets the ushabti of Ammit, and he plans to go to the Great Pyramid of Giza to break her out of this so that she can come into her power and hopefully he will become her avatar. Once we get to the pyramid, we see all the stones outside kind of moving to part way and give an entrance. And I found this really interesting because obviously zero historical grounding or mythological, but it's exactly what they chose to do in the film Gods of Egypt as well. So I don't know if we were inspired there in any way. It was just an interesting side thought. Layla successfully sneaks alongside Harrow into the Pyramid of Giza so that she can hopefully try and combat him in some way with the help of Taweret. In this, she goes to the wall of ushabtis, so these are all the trapped gods, and I thought I might comment now on some of the ones that we see. I'll make a strong guess as to which gods they might be because they don't show them very clearly. Firstly, the most obvious one that I can pick out is the god Khnum, and this is because we see him with these ram horns, and this was the ancient Egyptian god of fertility. He's also one of the original creator gods, i.e. he created the Egyptian universe, and he made all of the humans from clay. However, as time progresses, he's not quite as popular and his role is kind of reduced to smaller regions of Egypt. So we may have chosen him because of that, or there may have been no thought process behind it. We just thought he looked like a cool god. But it may be that he was imprisoned because he lost popularity, or vice versa, he lost popularity because he was imprisoned. Another one that we see, which is very, very hard to pick out on, is the god Bez. And I'm gonna guess it's Bez, even though it's not really like his other depictions, just because it is the widest of the ushabtis, and the god Bez is famously quite a stout dwarf-like figure. appearing almost childlike in his stature, which relates to the fact that he is the god that protects children and motherhood and childbirth. So why would Bez be imprisoned? I suppose he's kind of like a bit of a trickster, and he's kind of just creepy anyway. If you look at depictions of him, he's a bit of a weird one. But generally he's kind of a protecting entity, so maybe he failed in this role. The third that we see has quite a definable solar disc on the head of a goddess. However, many Egyptian goddesses had this solar disc, and there's only small details that separate them, which you can't really see in the silhouette they show. So with my best guess, it could be one of three: Sekhmet, Tefnut, or Hathor. My guess would be Sekhmet, just judging by the shape of the head when you compare it to other depictions of Sekhmet. She was a healing goddess alongside being a warrior goddess, so you can kind of guess how she could be imprisoned if you're a warrior goddess. Like, there's many things that could go wrong. Flash back to Harrow, and he finally releases the goddess Ammit by breaking her ushabti. And, okay, their depiction of Ammit looks very, very cool, but it kind of annoyed me. I got why they did it, but it's just not accurate. So they kind of just show her as a crocodile. However, Ammit is this hybridized beast-like creature. She's actually part crocodile in the head, and then part lion in the middle region, and then hippo at the back. And I get that this might look a little bit weird on TV, but I feel like it encapsulates her ferocious nature, because these were the three creatures that were the biggest threat to the ancient Egyptians. So, I don't know, I feel like there's a way they could have done it, but I get why they just went with crocodile. I do like, however, that later in the episode, when she starts consuming all of the bad souls, we do see her actually eating these souls or beings, and this is exactly what we would see in the Book of the Dead in her description, is the fact that if you failed the weighing scales scene, you would be eaten by Ammit. So that is massively accurate. We then revisit Mark, who is in the field of reeds, living his bliss, and is told by Tarweret that he's made it and that he should stay there, but he feels bad leaving Stephen behind in the sands of the Duat. So he goes back to save him. And in this, we see the gates of Osiris again. So I thought I might talk about the design of the gates in a little bit more detail. I recommend going back to my previous video where I talk about the reality, if there were the gates of Osiris or not, and how accurate this is. In this video, I'm just going to be talking about like the architectural properties. So at the gate, we see 4 giant statues of Osiris, and these are very accurate depictions of him. We see him with his arms almost crossed with a crook and flail. And these 2 objects were synonymous with Osiris and his identification. The crook stood for kingship in Egypt, while the flail was representative of fertility in the land. We'll also see a lot of pharaohs depicted with this because they're trying to embody the power that was Osiris, the original king of Egypt. We also accurately see him wearing the Atef crown. This is a white crown with ostrich feathers, and this is the main thing that we really use to identify depictions of Osiris. The gate then generally looks like the front of quite a few ancient Egyptian temples. Specifically, I think a good comparison would be Abu Simbel, where we see the 4 pharaohs sat outside in this rock-cut kind of temple. In order to combat Ammit, Layla agrees to be the temporary avatar of Tarweret. And I saw a lot of people complaining about that when she takes on this role and is in this new costume, it obviously doesn't look a lot like Tarweret, who was a hippo goddess, because it has wings. However, it does look like a scarab. It is the golden scarab, and this is because it's what her father used to call her. So yeah, we see these gold metal wings as a defense to look like the wings of a scarab, and at the center it shows a scarab beetle. I'm not going to talk about the properties of the scarab beetle because I think I did this way back with episode 1, and I don't really want to make people listen to it all over again, so go check that out. Then there is just a lot of fighting, which is epic. Like, the cinematography, amazing, but not a lot for me to talk about as an Egyptologist. So it all ends, we're all good, happy endings, we end up back in Steve's bedroom. This is when we see the two fish in the fish tank, and I just wanted to say how cool the fish tank is and point out what it includes. We see a mini little sphinx, we see the bust of Nefertiti, we see the boat of Khufu, which is obviously quite a good reference to the boat that they've just travelled on in the duet as well. And we see a temple and an obelisk. So pretty cool home for a fish. And that is it. There wasn't as much to cover in this episode, which makes a lot of sense because you're not going to be introducing new ideas in your season finale. But I really enjoyed the episode, and the series overall I just thought was fantastic from an Egyptological perspective, from an entertainment perspective, and the idea of representing Egyptian culture. I just thought it was 10 out of 10, and I really hope they do a second season. I don't know if they are, like there's a lot of rumours going around that they've only signed on to one, but we can hope and we can pray. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe because I've got big exciting things coming in relation to Moon Knight and Egyptology, so you don't want to miss out. Bye! Laters, gators!